It must kind of stink, though, that you can't run, 3 times,
No, actually, I think it's a good idea. If I ran a third time, it'd be sort of like doing a third Hangover movie. Didn't really work out very well, did it?
It's hard to believe it's almost going to be 10 years since that eventful February morning when Barack Obama announced he was going to run for president. If you can recall all the way back to 2007, the iPhone was just invented, teens were going emo, Beyonce's Irreplaceable was at the top of the music charts, and a senator from Idaho named Larry Craig was given blowjobs in bathroom stalls. It was about as good a time as ever to announce a run for the presidency. The first African American president is leaving office after an eventful 8 years, and I'm going to try to sum it up as best as I can and analyze it as honestly as I could. From a financial crisis to healthcare to terrorists getting bullets in their heads to Romney and Iran deals, I'll try to review the whole entire administration. Now, when you talk about a modern president, there's usually a lot of controversy that comes with it. Obama is no exception to that rule, as he has had his fair share of failures and successes. As in my Trump video, I'll try to give Obama credit when he deserves credit and Obama critique when he needs to be critiqued. Hopefully I'll manage to avoid a far left and a far right label, but no matter what I do, I'll probably be called biased. But oh well. In 2004, Obama gave a keynote address at the Democratic Convention to advertise his run for a seat in the Senate. He managed to show off his remarkable charismatic skills when it came to giving speeches, and although John Kerry, the 2004 Democratic nominee who managed to beat Howard Dean, ended up losing that year, Obama managed to snag a seat in the Senate. Around 3 years later, the man decided to run for president. Now, you must admit that you have to have serious confidence when it comes to running for president, and even stronger confidence when you decide to make a run after less than 1 term in the Senate. Who does this guy think he is? How does he dare run against Hillary Clinton during the primaries? I mean, Hillary has years of experience. She's totally not going to be beat. Oh. Well, there's always 2016, Hillary. I'm sure your experience will help you get far in that election year. In the summer of 2008, Obama became the first African American to acquire the presidential nomination of the Democratic Party, a party that has a long history of racism, but that's a topic for another day. I'm not trying to throw shade at them, but I think even the Republicans are going to admit that Obama had the clear advantage in 2008. Now, if you remember 2008, oil prices were skyrocketing, there was a global market meltdown that needed desperate solving, there were 2 wars being fought, and shoes were being thrown at presidents. Obama came in with a simple message, which was hope and yes we can, and those 2 lines got him pretty far.
Obama walked up and said, yes, we can. I said, I wanna ride your nuts, cause I think you're the man.
Now, maybe it's because I live in a very liberal state, California, but I remember back in 2008 when everybody loved Obama. I think everybody knew he was going to win. I mean, it didn't help that John McCain chose one of the worst running mates in history. On November 4th, 2008, Obama won the Electoral College with ease and won the popular vote by almost 10 million. It's hard to argue that he didn't have a mandate. On January 20th, 2009, Obama was sworn in as the 44th President of the United States. A few months later, he got a Nobel Peace Prize. But why did he obtain it, you may ask? No one is really quite sure, but that's not the point. One of Obama's campaign promises was universal health care, but there was really no time to do that once he was sworn in because he had to focus on the economy, which was collapsing and was basically going to die. Now that may be a stretch, but things were pretty bad, and you know things are pretty bad when unemployment almost reaches 10% and hundreds of thousands of Americans are losing their homes each week. Eventually, Obama managed to get ACA passed, that being known as the Affordable Care Act, though not without a huge fight in Congress. And then he was met with another challenge. Obama offered a huge stimulus package for the economy. That involved tax cuts, and an $800 billion boost into the economy. But this outraged a portion of the American people because they assumed that Obama was taking a socialist and an un-American approach on trying to stimulate the economy. Now, was all of this true? Well, kind of. The economy was completely tanking, and according to the Center of Budget and Policy website, from around December summer 2007 to early 2010, the country had lost some 8.7 million jobs. Now, it doesn't take a genius to say that Obama came in facing one of the worst economic crises in years. The protesters opposing Obama's policy called themselves the Tea Party, and from the Tea Party movement, another one was inspired. The other movement came to be known as the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was basically a protest against social and economic inequality across the globe. So what happened was that these members of Congress came home to attend town hall meetings, and what they were greeted with were pissed off people who didn't like Obama's policies. Enter the 2010 midterms, where the Democrats got slaughtered in the House of Representatives. Uh-oh. Trying to go through with that healthcare bill is going to be much more difficult now. So Obama acquires a stalemate in the Congress, so maybe it's time to focus on something else for a change. Hey, how about shooting that one terrorist dude? That might drive some attention away from this current predicament.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
Dude. Bin Laden got baracked in May of 2011 and it was awesome. Now, if the mission known as Operation Neptune Spear was a failure, then Obama probably wouldn't have been re-elected. Now, it's kind of odd to have millions of Americans celebrating the death of one person, but almost everybody can agree that Osama bin Laden was scum. I don't need to mention his involvement in 9/11 because everybody knows that, but he was one of the biggest influences on why we entered Afghanistan. We tried to take out the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, and we left the Middle East too early. To be fair, we probably shouldn't have been involved in the first place, but war hawks were rampant in the early 2000s. Now, it's probably in your best interest to do your own research when I cover topics like these because there's only so much I can fit into a 7 to 10 minute video. We ended up invading Iraq in 2003 due to its alleged terrorist relationships. We took out the dictator of Iraq known as Saddam Hussein pretty easily, and he was hanged on December 30th, 2006. To try and simplify things, I'm just going to say this. There was no real plan on exactly what to do after the invasion. There was a chaotic frenzy within the country known as Iraq. Violence ensued, terrorist networks were formed, and this would eventually come back to haunt Obama in his second term. President George W. Bush, Obama's predecessor, had signed an agreement to withdraw the troops by 2011, but that would prove to be a fatal mistake. I will try not to attack Bush on every single failure that happened in the Obama presidency, unlike certain Democrats. Once again, it may have not been in the best interest to do that in the long run because an Arab Spring was happening. There were violent and non-violent protests during the Arab Spring across the Middle East. I mean, at least Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State at the time, suggested to take some action in Libya. Oh. That's another thing America probably shouldn't have touched. The icing on the cake was that there was beginning to be a public outcry and questioning over where exactly Obama was born.
And I know just the guy to do it, Donald Trump. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing?
Oh, Obama, you have no idea. Things were getting pretty messy at the end of the first term, and there was something terrible looming over Obama's head. And by that, I mean it was re-election time! I'll try to make this short. The Republicans put forward their candidate, who was Mitt Romney. He was kind of boring, and Democrats painted him as being out of touch with people. Obama won re-election with a smaller electoral college and popular vote margin, but for a short time he was happy. But that wouldn't last for long. It did not take long for things to get stressful in his second term. About a month before he took his second oath of office, a shooting at an elementary school in Connecticut would foreshadow what he would have to face during his second part of his tenure. Violence would end up consuming the country and other new movements would come to light. Gun control was a major issue throughout his second term, but he couldn't do much about it because Republicans were against his proposals. In the 2014 midterm elections, the Democrats were once again slaughtered in both chambers of Congress. I mean, what else can he do on the issues now? I guess he can try and focus on whatever was happening in the Middle East at that time. During the ongoing Syrian civil war, the country had a flood of jihadists enter. Many civilians from the Middle East immigrated to Europe, and they had a crisis of their own. There was this growing cancer happening in the Middle East, and this new terrorist group was gaining power. Enter ISIS, whose leader was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The topic of the Middle East deserves a video all in itself, possibly a politically incorrect video maybe. The biggest proposal in Obama's second term was of course the Iran deal. Basically, uranium stockpiles were limited, sanctions were lifted, and Iran had to abide to inspections from the United Nations. People have accused this as being a way for Obama to appease to the Iranians, and they fear that Obama may have done something terrible, but who knows? Only time will tell. In other news, Obama tried to obtain better relationships with Cuba, but other relationships, like with Russia, have dwindled to Cold War levels. Obama ended up appointing 2 new Supreme Court justices, but he didn't get to appoint his third one, Merrick Garland. In 2015, gay marriage was made legal in all 50 states via the Supreme Court, a landmark decision. Other important things that Obama did was take action on climate change, with the Paris Peace Agreement and campaigning for Hillary Clinton during the election. His influence, however, didn't do much to help her win. Whoops. Barack Hussein Obama. The 44th president will leave office in a few days as one of the most popular modern presidents. He'll be put in a little special club along with Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, and Bill Clinton as one of the most likable presidents. According to polls, he will be defined as a charismatic man. He is a consequential president, even if many of his proposals will be undone by Donald Trump. He played politics with the Republicans and tried to do what was possible within his boundaries. On the big issues, he cut the deficit. He revived some of the American people's spirit for younger generations, even though it is obvious to state that he has made many errors. Did Obama exceed expectations? That's for you to interpret, but as for his critics, many are frustrated at him, and that upset led to a historic victory for his successor. But everybody out there has to concede that Barack Obama is leaving the White House a historical figure, and a man who has made his grand impact on the country. Let's see what the 45th president has to offer.
Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you. May God continue to bless.